Welcome, everyone, to another chapter of Murder in Stratton County. A murder mystery with twists and turns. Written by Elizabeth Spoon and Ryland Mason. Narrated by me, Brian Shepard.
Chapter 13, Gone to Lunch. Brian stopped at the first door in the hallway. Putting his hand on the doorknob, he paused, closing his eyes. Jordan just looked at him. "What is it? What's wrong?" he asked, seeing Brian's expression change to that of sadness. Brian turned the knob and opened the door. This was Prudence's room. The bed was neatly made, and everything was still as she left it. "She sometimes would stay here if I was hosting people or having company." Brian then sat down on the edge of the bed. "I still can't believe that this is all happening," he said softly. Jordan then sat down next to him. "I'm sure it will all work out in time," he said, putting his hand on top of Brian's. Brian felt safer having Jordan with him. Everything is going to be fine. "I suppose you're right. Let's get out of here and go enjoy the rest of the day," Brian said as he stood up, shaking his head as if to remove all bad thoughts he had in his mind. They left the room, closing the door behind him. He picked up the backpack and they headed back towards the car. "Want to get some lunch in town?" Jordan asked as he carefully rested a hand on Brian's lower back. Brian, at that moment, felt at ease, calm. The feeling of being comforted just a little meant so much, and it's a feeling he hoped would not go away. Brian agreed, and they headed out of the house and to the car. Heading to town to enjoy a nice meal is what both of them needed, which gave them more time together. Jordan pulled up in front of the marketplace, shutting off the car, and got out, walking around to the passenger side and opening the door for Brian. "Thanks," Brian said, smiling. Jordan locked the car as they entered the marketplace. Shep was behind the counter. "Good morning, Mayor," Shep said, giving a wave as Brian and Jordan walked up to the counter. "Morning. Shep, this is Dr. Jordan Prescott." Jordan stuck out a hand to shake, which Shep accepted, shaking back. "Mayor, it is good to see you in good spirits, considering all that's happened. Would you gentlemen like some lunch?" Shep asked with a smile. "We are famished," Jordan responded. "Well, go ahead and take a seat. I'll be right with you," he said as he pointed out to the empty seats. Brian and Jordan sat down at a corner table. There was one other couple inside the marketplace, and they looked to be about finished with their meal. They threw some cash down on the table and disappeared out the door. Shep came out of the kitchen holding an empty tray. He went over to the table, clearing the dishes and stuffing the money into his apron. "You two figure out what you want yet?" he asked. Jordan was still looking over the menu. Brian thought a minute or two more was needed. "Not yet. However, we will take a couple of iced teas." "Coming right up." Shep went back into the kitchen to put the dishes in the sink and got their iced teas. Shep then came out from behind the counter with the two iced teas, gently placing them in front of Brian and Jordan, making sure to dig in his apron for the straws. They both ordered a sandwich and sat quietly talking while they waited for their food. As soon as Shep brought the food to the table, the chimes on the door jingled. Tabitha Benson came through the door with her children in tow. Shep placed the plates on the table and went to the front of the store to greet her. "Good morning. Is Alice here?" Tabitha asked, looking around. No, not today. Something I can help you with? Shep asked. I saw the ad in the paper for a job position open here, she said with a hint of desperation in her voice. Oh, let me call her. Shep went into the office and dialed the phone to Alice's house. The answer machine picked up. Shep left a message and then hung up the phone. She didn't answer, but I did leave her a message, he said, shutting the door to the office. Okay, great, thank you. Tabitha took her kids and headed for a table to sit down. Her children, all peeling off their coats and putting the chairs out, Shep looked at the kids. I bet you want breakfast, he said to them. Can we still get pancakes? Tabitha asked. Certainly, he said. I'll get right on it. He went back into the kitchen to whip up some batter while the kids sat coloring with crayons as Tabitha read part of the paper. The phone started to ring. As Shep came out of the kitchen carrying the tray with all the kids' orders on it, he set it down on an adjacent table and excused himself to go answer the phone. Tabitha then placed the plates in front of her kids to eat. Shep returned from the office, looking at her. That was Alice. She would like you to come in tomorrow morning if it's possible so she can sit down and talk with you, he told her. Tabitha shook her head. That would be fine, she said, sounding excited. Say around 9 or so. I'll leave her a note for in the morning. Shep walked over to Brian and Jordan, who were just about finished with their sandwiches. Can I get you two anything else? Shep asked, grabbing the dirty plates. Do you have any pie? Jordan asked, looking up at Shep. Yeah. Today we got apple, chocolate cream, and lemon meringue, Shep said, looking like he was making sure he got it all. I'd like a piece of lemon. He looked at Brian. None for me, watching the waistline, Brian said as he tapped his midsection. However, he should have had a slice. Lemon was his favorite. Okay, be right back with that, Shep said as he walked over to the counter, then returned with the pie, setting it down on the table with the check. Take your time, he says. Thanks, Shep, Brian said, looking at Jordan. And then Shep walked back over to chat with Tabitha and the kids. How's the new house? He asked. Great. It's nice to have the extra space for the kids and all that and all of our belongings, she said. Tabitha then sat quietly for a minute. Except... And then Shep just looked at her. Except what? He inquired. There's some things that I can't quite explain, she says, hesitating. Such as? Shep pulled out a chair and then sat down at the table himself. I really don't want to mention it in front of the kids, she said, looking at her kids who were still mowing down on their pancakes. Well, maybe you can tell me another time, he said. Daddy says the house is haunted, her oldest piped up. It's not haunted, Tabitha proclaimed. Eat your pancakes, she told her child, handing them a napkin. Especially the basement, she muttered, stuffing another piece into her mouth. Oh, hogwash. It's an old house. Old houses creak and make funny noises, Shep said. Tabitha had sort of a half smile on her face, knowing Shep was the only trying to quell the worries of the kids, might have had ghosts and such. I'm sure it can be chalked up to old pipes or something like that, Shep now said to the youngest. See, old pipes, no ghosts, Tabitha said, agreeing with Shep. Brian and Jordan got up from their table and pushed in their chairs. Shep looked over his shoulder. You guys done? He stood up, pushing in his chair and heading for the register to ring them out. How was everything? Shep asked, looking at the two of them. Delicious, Brian said, wiping his face with a napkin. Brian now fished for his billfold on the inside of his coat. Nothing. Searching other pockets revealed no luck, as it seemed he must have left it at the house, or lost it. Damn, Brian said out loud, causing Jordan and Shep to stop talking with confused looks on their faces. I seem to have forgotten my wallet. I'm going to have to head to the bank for some cash. I'm thinking I might need to grab extra packs of my cigarillos as well, Brian explained as he looked at Jordan. All right, we can head to the bank before we head out and grab whatever you need, Jordan replied. Jordan pulled out his wallet and handed Shep a credit card. Shep rang them out and handed Jordan a receipt. Thanks so much. Have a good day, Jordan said to Shep as he helped Brian into his coat. Brian and Jordan stepped back out into the cold morning air. The bank was not that far of a walk, so the two started for the bank, hand in hand. Entering the bank, Brian was always amazed at how much business this bank really did, considering it had been open since the town was established back in 1894. Stratton Bank and Trust did not have an ATM. There was no drive-through lane and only 2 tellers that sat behind what looked like an iron fence. The bank owners throughout the years did not want to change the customer relationship by adding teller machines and drive-up windows, making the customer continue to come into the bank. It must be working. Mayor Shepard, what an honor to see you today, said a voice almost like a snake to the left of the bank as Brian and Jordan walked toward the line. Brian turned his head towards the voice and spotted none other than the bank president himself, which is odd in itself, as Brian always heard this guy would hide in his office all day and count money. An image of his favorite Disney character, Scrooge McDuck, came into his mind for a moment, creating a smile on Brian's face. That smile quickly faded as he started to approach them. Great. Kevin Walker. Kevin A. Walker is a douchebag, plain and simple. Everyone knows that the Walkers used to run this town back in the day. Kevin's great-great-grandfather opened the bank, paving the way for the Walker family to take more important roles in the town throughout the years. Brian succeeded Kevin's father as the next mayor when he decided to up and die on election day. This made Kevin angry, as he did not want to run the bank, as he found it dull and boring. He wanted to be mayor like his father. He took over as bank president when his grandfather passed away. All of this just made the man even more bitter, which was a bad taste in Brian's mouth. Brian rather knocked the guy's teeth down his throat and call it a day. Katie, we will talk more about this later. For now, don't touch my vacuum again, scolding her as she walked by the 3 of them. I'm sorry, Mr. Walker. It won't happen again, she said as he returned her to her window. Kevin then shook his head and looked at Brian. You just can't find good help these days. Damn woman sucked up a $100 bill and wondered why her end-of-day till came up short. I should have fired her. Yet with Rhonda not coming in, I guess I need her, he said as he dug his hand into his suit vest pocket and pulled out a black billfold. I just happened to have your wallet, Brian. It seems Rhonda found it and was going to give it back. I saw it on her station and wanted to make sure you got it. I would hope you don't make a habit of losing your wallet. It would be a shame if it was found by bad people, he said with a half-cocked smile, handing the wallet over to Brian. Brian, confused as to what was happening, just took the wallet. Thank you, Kevin. This is the reason why I came in here. I was going to withdraw money as I don't carry cash. You know that. I will have to make sure to let Rhonda know how thankful I am that she found it. Well, as soon as she decides to grace us with her presence, I will make sure to tell her, Kevin said, eyes beaming at Brian, now turning to look at Jordan. You must be the new town doctor, he said, looking not impressed. I am, and you are? Jordan asked, wanting to know who this jerk was. Brian quickly interrupted before Kevin could answer. This is Kevin A. Walker, president of the Stratton County Bank and Trust, son of the late Mayor Walker, and if you don't mind, now that I have my billfold, I don't have to stand in these long lines that you seem to have going on here. Brian pointed at the lines that had gotten longer, while grabbing Jordan and started to walk back towards the door. Of course, Mayor. I apologize for the lines. Like I said, Rhonda has been out since finding your maid. Oh, I'm sorry to bring it up. I, too, would hate to lose the help, Kevin said, as he really meant it, 'cause you know damn well he did. Brian stopped dead in front of the door, causing Jordan to bump into the back of him. This is the reason why no one liked the guy, or his family for that matter. So when I said he was a douchebag, he really is. This had Brian seeing red at this point. Jordan could feel Brian's hand tighten at the mention of his maid. Jordan turned his head to look at Kevin. Have a great day, Mr. Walker. Nice meeting you, Jordan politely responded and walked out the door with Brian in tow. So, what do you want to do now? Jordan asked. Brian zipped up his coat, lighting a cigarillo. After dealing with Kevin, the rage was mounting. A distraction, something fun to do, was in order. Horseback riding? Brian asked, walking towards the car. They got in the car, and Jordan started it up. That's the best idea. It's a beautiful day. We shouldn't waste the sunshine, Jordan said happily. They headed out of town back towards Jordan's house, talking and chatting about anything and everything. The best day ever, Brian thought to himself. How did he get so lucky to have someone like Jordan? Shep sat back down at the table next to Tabitha and her kids. So, you think you'll be able to handle this job? He asked. I think so. I just have to square away the kids with school. My husband still has to work in the city until he picks up some clients of his own around here to get his own business off the ground. So he's gone very early in the morning, she said, looking at Shep. Alice and myself are pretty easygoing folks. I'm sure you'll do fine, Shep said, trying to reassure her. Tabitha looked at her watch. We better go. Tomorrow is the first day of school for these three, and I have so much to prepare them. Let me pay you, she said as she started to rise from her chair. Tabitha felt for her wallet inside her coat pockets. She started to panic a bit. Shep stood up. What's wrong? He asked her. I can't find my wallet. Oh, I must have left it on the table in the kitchen trying to rush these guys out the door. Relieved that she may remember where she left it. Shep just smiled. No worries, I got this one today, he said, looking at the kids. Really? That's so nice of you, she said, smiling. Think nothing of it. You just be here tomorrow at 9, okay? Shep said, stepping out of the way. Okay, she said. The kids got rebundled in their winter coats, and Tabitha, pulling on her gloves, thanked Shep again for covering their breakfast. Thank you again, Shep. See you tomorrow, she said with a grateful smile. They went out the door as Shep returned to the kitchen to tidy up the day's dishes. Thanks so much for listening to Chapter 13.